Yeah, at the moment there's an LC oscillator. But the oscillator in here can run 635 the only current is this one. When it's set on receive, we've got, actually this is quite high, it's 80 milliamps in the LNA. Actually it's 10 volts. We've got 80 milliamps in there at 10 volts and 44 amplifiers. This set of batteries runs in 2.5 hours without changing. Now, well, other than we do have to supply 15 volts relay switch on here, but other than that, what I see.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to get the show started, so if you come enough, come forward and take a seat. We'll get things moving. Okay, folks, whether you're ready or not, we're going to get moving, or it's going to be a long evening. Take a call to order, and Gary, would you be kind enough to lead us in the pledge?
Please rise and uncover if you're wearing a hat. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, again, I want to welcome everyone here this evening. We've got a few announcements to go through before we have the program. First one, I'd like to start with the committee reports. Michelle, would you be kind enough to give us a report on the repeater side?
Use the mic.
Elizabeth, hello. The repeater site is still there. Things look pretty good, with some notable exceptions. The auto patch is not yet working. We are hoping to make a large amount of progress at our work party, which is this coming Saturday. If you would like to attend the free work party planning session, it's at 9 a.m. at Mother's Kitchen on top of Palomar Mountain. It's a great restaurant, breakfast, burritos, pancakes, all that sort of thing. I'll be there at 9. The work party starts at 10 at the repeater site. It goes until noon. And you can even catch lunch after the work party. Battery systems are all looking good. Our site is very clean. We got some compliments from the neighbors. We're pressing forward with a lot of work on the tower itself. The antennas, we still need to refurbish them. And that pretty much wraps it up. Any questions about the repeater site? Or any concerns that you may have about the project that you would like to see happen? Please feel free to just walk up to me and start talking. I will probably answer back.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Okay, field day report. We did get everything in, which is always a good thing if we want the points. There has been some talk on the repeater, as many of you have heard, not everybody. There is a proposal to try to have field day at the Delaware Fairgrounds. We are not going to commit yet beyond committing to investigate and see if it is viable. There's some logistics issues, of course, with the crowds they have there and whatnot. But I have personally committed to at least look into it and see if it's something the club wants to do. Again, that's going to be next June, so we have plenty of time to think about it now.
Take a vote.
Well, first we're going to see if we can even get in or out, or if they're going to give us a site that's suitable. But having good publicity this last time, we'd like to try that. Okay, next item. Picnic, Mark.
Well, for those of you who are wondering whether or not we're going to have one, yes. We've changed the location this year. How many people know where San Miguelito Park is? Over on Loma Santa Fe. That's really good because I only printed 30 maps. The rest of you, up here in the front, manila envelope has maps. We're going to be in picnic area 4. We've got it reserved all day. And And then for those of you who aren't quite sure how nice it is, on the way over here, I grabbed the low-res camera. I snapped I don't know, 8 or 10 photos, and I'm running a little slideshow over here so you can see where we're going to be. Hopefully we'll see everybody August 28th. I hope that's right, because that's what it says on here.
That's what it says on there. That's what it says on the website. What time? I think the website still says 6 of the lake, though.
Not anymore. No.
Not anymore?
It's been updated.
What time?
Well,
6 a.m.
usually we say noon. People start getting there around 10. So you want to try for noon again?
Noon works for me.
Everybody want to try for noon again? All righty. If you get there early, by the way, I have to say this is the first time I was there about 6 o'clock a couple hours ago, or an hour or so ago. It was really nice. Breeze blowing off the ocean. I think next year we have a picnic dinner.
We'll give it a shot. Okay, everyone stand by when we have a whole series of announcements to go through here. Are there questions pertaining to the picnic only?
How are we dividing up the potluck?
Mark?
8 to 8 doing this.
Picnic question. How are we dividing up potluck or eating?
Oh my. Actually, I haven't done that. I guess we better do it like we did classically every prior year by first letter of the end of your call sign, the number after your number. And the letter after your number. Hopefully everyone here has a letter after the number. If you do, you're in the wrong meeting. Okay, let's just say what is it? A through A through J. That's the first 10 letters. We'll make that chips and dips, and you can figure the rest of it out yourself. And then J through about S, we'll make sides, and T through Z, we'll make desserts. Okay. The club, as usual, will provide hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken, and bring your own drinks.
Bring your own drinks, folks. Dave, do you have a question pertaining to picnic?
What day of the week is 28th? Sunday.
Sunday?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions pertaining to the picnic? Okay, next item. Okay, still looking for volunteers, folks. But what I want to do is I want every one of you to volunteer. One thing that's been happening with PARC and every club over the last several years is membership has been waning. Meeting attendance is pretty good tonight, but we've had our ups and downs. I would like every one of you to think of any ham that you know that might be interested in amateur television, or what is the other thing we're going to cover? I think it's microwave, Art?
Yeah.
And I would like you to invite them to next month's meeting. Of course, if that's not of interest, the month after that, coming up in October, is the auction. Who does not have fun at an auction? I'm going to see all the boat anchors and things that people are going to sell or buy or whatever. Well, we would like you each to invite somebody to a meeting to see what we can do to get them interested. And eventually we're going to branch out to people that don't have licenses yet and see what we can do for them as well. Okay, September 7th meeting is going to be amateur television and microwave. It's going to be presented by Art McBride, C6 at UQH. We were supposed to have a Del Mar Fair report. Skip Klein here this evening. Okay, I don't see him yet. He may want to give a report at the end of the meeting, or if he shows up before the presentation. Now from the floor, Harry, W6YO has an announcement.
Okay, this has to do with QCWA, Quarter Century Wireless Association. If you had a license 25 years ago and you have one today, you're eligible. The quarterly luncheon brunch is going to be this coming Sunday, which is the 7th of August, at Kenny's in Claremont, beginning at 10:30 in the morning. We always have free raffles, lots of prizes. The programs are going to be the South San Mateo expedition of a couple of years back, and of fun. And Pat, do you have anything to add to that? No, you can finish. Okay, that's our president. We always have a lot of fun. And Pat will bring something from the Preston Amateur Radio Museum to raffle off. It might be worth a lot of money. Probably more than he paid for it on eBay. You never know.
Thank you, Harry. Jim, Andy 60 had a radio-related job announcement, I believe.
I'm Jim Cooper, ND60. The sister company to where I work, March Plasma Systems, is looking for a technician to work on the production line in RF. They make plasma cleaning equipment, which runs at 13.56 megahertz with a few hundred watts to a few kilowatt range. And this would be purely a production type job. But if anybody knows someone who's interested or is interested in self, please contact me directly or at my email, ne60@amset.org.
Thank you, Jim. Now for one of the better parts of amateur radio. We have 2 certificates to give out this evening for public service. So, first one, Paul Williamson. Would you come forward, please? Well, what did you do? This certificate reads, in appreciation for his unique contribution to the success of the Women's Clinic held on March 5th, 2005 at Casa de Ingenio, Colonia La Morita, Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, at no cost to patients. 10 specialty medical teams were assigned to otherwise vacant and randomly located rooms in the huge 2-story casa for 400 patients to each find the room of their medical specialty. What had been frustrating had not Paul, using his wide carriage printer, made large signs in Spanish on plastic cloth, which were attached to the doors of the examining rooms. He assured sufficient operations with confusion fully suppressed. Next certificate, Wild Bill. Would you please come forward? This is for William Wiederhold, WB6BFG. In appreciation for his invaluable contribution to the success of the Women's Clinic held on March 5th, 2005 at Casa de Eugenio, Colonia La Morita, Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, at no cost to patients. The clinic location was in hilly, unpaved, unmapped eastern outskirts of Tijuana, unknown to the 40 clinic volunteers crossing the border in the early hours. Without Bill's masterful synthesis of the computerized map disseminated via email, rampant frustration would have prevailed. Then, by amateur radio, he coordinated caregivers crossing the border from the organizations listed below. Bill and the ham radio set the stage for success.
Paul's signs were wonderful. Actually, we've got some pictures up that I probably should have sent them to Paul, but he did a great job, and everybody was able to find their way through the maze. How many people did we figure total that showed up to this deal? 400 patients?
400 patients, 40 support.
Yeah, and then plus another 20 volunteers. It was incredible.
Good. Public service and international goodwill at its best. Okay, from the league, Pat.
Of course, I'd like to remind everyone that the second Saturday coming up here pretty quick will be the big ARES breakfast at Giovanni's, 8 o'clock a.m. Now, the big news, though, is coming up August 20th, Saturday, August 20th, about 7 a.m., there will be a 7.0 earthquake hit San Diego. And the whole area is just going to be wasted. Well, at least that's what we're pretending. And this is the big simulated emergency test sponsored by the League and Amateur Radio Emergency Service. Be listening on your local repeaters and you will find out how you can help.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, announcement for, I guess it's the freebies. There's National Semiconductor and TI handbooks on a cart in the back of the room for anyone that is interested. Looks like there's some things up here. Art, do you have
just QSTs and the logbook and all their
Okay, that's all for you, Mark.
I just happened to see the stuff back there. For anybody who's doing any work, those are TI and they're linear data books. All the op amps, comparators, all the stuff that we use.
Okay. So those of you that have interest, Mark says that there's something of value. For me, I'm an appliance operator, so I wouldn't know. Okay, any other announcements from the floor?
Nash has an announcement.
Nash, that's another announcement.
This woman's clinic that was suggested here earlier, there were 400 patients and 40 caregivers from UCLA South to UCSD, etc. The UCLA team, there were 8 OBGYNs. And obviously at a woman's clinic, you're going to see more than just women. You're going to see their babies. One of them had a defective heart, and we immediately jumped on that, as the Flying Samaritan did. And this clinic was on the 5th of March this year. Only now have we cleared all the paperwork through UCLA to make sure that they don't get sued. Crazy deals today. It's so different from the way it used to be. You got to get everybody to sign. I won't sue you, I promise. And then to get everybody cleared across the border to transport the little child, maybe up to UCLA, and that's happening this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dennis, N6KI.
And I have N6UWW and WD6BFG back up here.
You bring your underwear?
We're down in Mexico and we stole them. At the last minute, Wild Bill and Eleni, I think they were on a trip last month, so they rescued us on field day. There was no 15-meter sideband station. It had been vacated at the last minute, but then N3D had an emergency call to work. They pulled it out. Wild Bill, Elena LaLoca here, operated, set up station, or helped them set up. Bill bought bucket brigade, trucks, all sorts of things, made field day a great success. So I'd like to give them a gift and our thanks. Hang on. And I have, unfortunately, we ran out of field day t-shirts in sizes. You would have to swim in one, Ellen, for the sizes we got. So we have a nice field day t-shirt, which says on the back, got sight, for WD6BFG. Thank you. And for Ellen, her favorite Mexican restaurant, his second choice, with a field day shirt. Sharkies and Ensenada.
No, Sharkies.
Where'd you get that, Dennis?
Okay, folks, bear with us. We're almost through this. Don.
I have a 2-meter antenna out in my car. The N6 OPG promised to somebody, he couldn't remember the name of the person he promised to do, and he couldn't make the meeting. But I have it here, and whoever was supposed to get it.
It was me.
Okay, that was for Deborah, who's in the back corner here, Don. Hold your hand up there. Stand up, Deborah. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Mike Doyle, not here tonight as usual. New member chair, John Ernest, would you stand up? We're still looking for John's replacement, by the way.
Replace me.
Okay. So anyone that's been a ham for a year or less that would like the job as new member chair, step forward. At least we'll try to keep you from stepping back. Membership, Al, W6GNI. Okay. Repeater site is Michelle. That's W5NYV. Director number 2, Mark, our picnic chairman. KF6 TW, was it? WTM. I talked to him. I don't know the call signs.
You since you were in junior high and you still don't know that call sign.
Because I know your name. Anyways. And director number 1, who's in charge of our auction coming up. Tom, where are you? Well, he's not here this evening. He's hiding. Getting ready for the auction. our treasurer, Joe Ashley, and Paul Williamson, our secretary, and Dennis, TJ, our vice president. I'm Steve, 86VI. I'm the one it's all my fault. And do we have any visitors this evening?
Can I be a visitor and a member too?
If you haven't been here in a long time, stand up and identify yourself.
Ron Turfield, 96RX.
Other visitors, I know we've had a few more.
KG6GUT.
Say your name. Go on, letters.
Richard Nelson, I'm with Bedcroft Town.
All right, Richard. Have a visitor from Pennsylvania.
Hi, name is Rob Welsh, call us N3RW. I'm here to go up to Vancouver Island in about a week and a half and operate from North America 36. If there's any IOTA chasers.
All right, we'll try to get that in the short. Well, actually, if you get the short, try to get it out on the net or something. Okay, any other visitors here today, Mark? Over here. Who's visiting over in this area? People are pointing.
Eric Hutchins, K70LH.
Oh, welcome aboard. Is that all we have for visitors this evening? Another one. Ooh. KU6A, welcome aboard. Okay, program this evening.
Just one quick point. Everybody was wondering where we're going to go after the KGs. A friend of mine at the office just got his call signed 4 days ago, and it's KI.
KI.
They skipped H's because of Y.
Yeah, Kilo India went right over. I think there's actually rules to that. Okay, look like Dennis has one more announcement before we go.
Okay, I have T-shirts that ordered them. If they're here, or if anybody knows these people, please come and get them from me. KG6 Uniform Radio Delta, Kilo Golf 6 Zulu Lima Whiskey, 86 UK Uniform Kilo, Kilo Fox 6 Hotel Charlie Lima.
Okay, now the reason why we're here. It's our presentation. I would like to welcome back a past president of PARC. Been seriously involved in our repeater site over the years. Built it what it is, helped build it to what it is today, and kept us all on the straight and narrow. Stan Maror, W9FQN, and he's going to give us a presentation on transmitter hunting, I believe.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Ted, you can hear me? I can hear you. What I would like to do at this time before I start in is get some ideas of just exactly what the audience is that I have. As I look around, I see a lot of... You want me to do it tonight? Okay. As I look around, I see a lot of old-timers here. So you've probably heard many of the things which I'm going to talk about. But there are also a lot of strange faces. I don't mean strange faces. There are a lot of strangers here. And so maybe this will be new to some of you. What I would like to do is I would like to have everybody who has participated in a transmitter hunt. In other words, you have looked for a hidden transmitter, or you've helped somebody else look for one. I'd like you to stand up. Okay, now remain standing, please. Okay, these are the people then that have actually gone out and they have actually been looking for hidden transmitters. Now, if you have ever found a hidden transmitter, keep standing. Everybody else sit down. Wow. Okay, if you have found 2 or more hidden transmitters, remain standing. The rest of you sit down. Wow. Okay, let's, Ted, are you still standing?
I'm standing. Ask Dennis.
Yeah, I saw your name on the website this afternoon. Okay, if you have found 5 or more hidden transmitters, stand up. The rest of you sit down. Okay, we've got a fair number of people. You want to give your name and call? Jim?
P60 Jim.
And of course, John. Who else? Joe? I didn't see you standing there. And the charming gentleman there in the back. Don has done a tremendous amount of transmitter hunting, as some of the rest of you have. So we've got at least a few people here that are somewhat local experts in the finding of hidden transmitters. The question comes about, what are you going to be looking for? Well, there are several cases where you'd be looking for a hidden transmitter. Probably the most popular one is where there's a jammer on the repeater, and you'd like to be able to locate it. And this is something that the club always needs to be very, very careful about, and that is the location of jammers, because you yourself can get into certain problems if you're not very careful while doing that. The next thing would be where a person has in some way left a microphone where it is jammed in between the front seats. How many have heard that on the repeater in the past year?
Never.
Okay. Is there anybody here that would admit to the fact that they did jam the repeater once? Okay, we've got a couple of people here that have done that. I must confess, I did it once too. It was a long time ago, but I very carefully now make sure that I go ahead and put the microphone in a place where I don't let it slip down. One of the things that one usually does when they're doing transmitter hunting is that if you have a home station, what we would normally want to do is do something that is relative to triangulation. And so what I put up here is a beam. This would be a wide angle beam here. It has a capture area which is very, very wide. If you were using a beam like that, which might be a 2-element beam, this would be something of an example of it. I brought the one that I was working on. I didn't bring the one that has the coax connection to it, but at least you get the idea. You could use a beam of this type. The only thing is, which way do you usually do the orientation of the beam when you're looking for a hidden transmitter? Okay, it's usually this way. There are times, though, when you go like this, but usually it's this way. What you would like to have is you would like to have something that has a little bit more directivity, because of the fact that you would be able to go ahead and locate something a little bit more precisely. Can anyone tell me how you could locate a transmitter with a fair degree of precision, even with a wide angle beam? What could you do? Okay, as Art said, you could go for a null. Another thing too that you might want to do is to swing the beam back and forth like this, and note where your signal tends to drop out on one side, where it tends to drop out on the other side. And this would be one way of doing it. There is a problem, though, that when you are trying to give directions to some group that is trying to locate a hidden transmitter, and that would be well, like one of the problems I have at my QTH. I'm located out in Valley Center, and if I want to talk to San Diego, one would almost imagine that for me to talk to San Diego, that I would point my beam to the south. I don't. If I want to talk to San Diego, I have to put my beam over to the east. Why? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm bouncing off a Palomar Mountain. But one has to be very, very careful because of the fact that you can have various types of reflections which are near your QTH, which can distort the pattern that you have. So one must be very, very careful of that. One of the things that happened back probably somewhere around about 16 years ago was that there was an emergency call that was made by an amateur who was in a boat out in the Pacific Ocean. He was probably somewhere around about 50 or 60 miles out into the ocean. Whether it was cloudy or foggy, I'm not sure, but anyway, he could not see land, and they were taking on water. And so what he did is he got on the 146.73 repeater, and he went and gave a call, and that was then forwarded to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard said, well, yeah, the Pacific Ocean is fairly large. Where is he in the ocean? And so then one of our problems was to go ahead and see if we couldn't give the Coast Guard some idea as to where he was located. And so, does anyone here know Bob Gonset, W6VR? Okay, he's a well-known ham here in North County, in fact, throughout San Diego County. And he led a group in trying to do some triangulation. And so what they did is they picked up and they averaged beam headings from several different locations. And they were able to get a plot out into the ocean, and they forwarded this estimated location to the Coast Guard, and they went out immediately and picked him up. So this is an example where using a beam with directivity from a home station was able to help in an emergency. There are various types of beams. One of the beams, Jim, do you want to show your beam at this time? People who are doing transmitter, is Jim here? Yeah. People have various types of beams that they like to use in transmitter hunting. And one of the popular kinds that they want to use is a cubical quad. So Jim, you want to describe yours?
This is a cubical quad that I built for transmitting, for some transmitter hunts with the Years Club, maybe about 20 years ago. It was thrown together in an afternoon, and it's been unthrown and rethrown together various times since. It still works. It's a gain antenna. You just hold it up, and you can tune either for the maximum off the front, or quite often if the signals are strong, you turn it off the back for the no, and go for the no. And this thing works pretty well, and sometimes it has too much gain when close in, and you need an attenuator.
Thank you. Beams are very, very nice to use, and if you're really going out and trying to do things right, it's good to have a beam. For some reason or another, I don't know whether it's because I was always lazy, but it always seemed that people would call me up and say, hey, there's a jammer on the repeater, or somebody's got a stuck mic, and I come in from the Grove and I immediately throw together a couple of things in the car and take off. Many times I don't have much of an opportunity to go ahead and pick up everything that I need to take. And so when it comes to taking a beam, that is just a little bit out of my range. But there are people, though, that do use beams, and they do use them in their cars even while they are running. So, Joe, would you show your beam and make a couple of comments about it? I think hers is really pretty good. She's almost a professional and has placed high in some of the ARRL huntings.
Okay. Okay. I set this up horizontally, but you can set it up at 45 degrees or vertically. And I did that because when we have T-hunts, sometimes somebody deliberately gives us a horizontal signal when we are expecting a vertical one, or we're not sure. We can put it at 45 degrees and usually pick up something. My husband helped me make this. What it does is this piece at the bottom, and I don't know how many of you can see that. Fits in the pocket of the car. This is about the window height. And this thing here lays on the roof of the car with a piece of foam under it, and then I use a strap and strap it down tight so it gives a little bit of support for the antenna. Then I can, as I'm driving along, I can turn it and I can see where the signal is strongest. So.
It'll make a 12-volt motor?
It worked very well in my little Honda because from the driver's seat, I could reach on the passenger side, I could reach it. Now I have a Astro van and I can't reach, so I need to have somebody sitting on the passenger side to turn the antenna and see where the signal is strongest. And this I put in as a little attenuator so that you know, when we get close, I can push these in and attenuate the signal. Any other questions?
Why don't you go ahead and tell about the one that you traced down in South County?
Okay. One day, I think it was a Saturday or a Sunday, I was at work, and on the way to work, I heard the signal, and then when I left work and came home, there was still a signal on the repeater, and nobody had gone looking for it. So Carl, N6WLX, and he's got a different call now, I'm not sure what it is. He came over to my house and we strapped this antenna onto his car, and we took off driving because W6SAX said the signal was in Pacific Beach. We started down 15 and got to 163, and they said, it's not in Pacific Beach, it's to our left. And we took off near Montgomery Field, and Sybil Albright lived down there. And I said, oh my goodness, this signal's going to be at Sybil's house. And just before we got to Sybil's house, the signal was to our left again, and we found a house with a whole bunch of antennas on it. And the signal was so strong, I got out of the car, took all the antennas off my handy-talkie, and I could still read the signal. So we knocked on the front door. They didn't know who we were. They thought we were some kind of kook. They wouldn't open the door. Then they went to a bathroom window and opened the bathroom window and talked to us through the window and said, no, there's no radios on here. There's, you know, this can't be us. So I said, well, I have a full-scale signal and no antenna on my handy-talkie. It's right here. So I said, go check your radios. Well, the man walked into his garage, picked up his handy-talkie that had been lying on its side, resting on the push-to-talk. This was one of the bigger, older handy-talkies. And picked it up, the signal stopped. So that was it. And he wouldn't admit that it was his. So anyway, that was one of the ones we found, okay?
All right. You don't think she gets weird looks driving down the highway with that antenna on her car?
Well, I think I'd rather have the weird looks that she gets driving down the highway than the weird looks I get standing out on a corner spinning around like this. which is what has happened on several occasions. One of the things that I probably should mention is that I don't know whether this has been addressed before, but I know that we used to have a policy as to what would happen if somebody was jamming a repeater or if the repeater was being jammed and it was possibly something that was accidental. But that's something maybe that the club would want to address again and see whether they can't publish something concerning that. I always wanted to have the repeaters left on in a jamming situation. For instance, if somebody has their microphone jammed in between the two front seats, I want the repeater turned on. And if I'm aware of it, then I go ahead and I turn off the timeout timer and make sure that that repeater stays on. These repeaters were made to stay on for hours, and I know they can stay on for hours. Dennis, won't they? Yeah. Yeah, they'll stay on for hours. I mean, you can talk them and you don't talk them to death. So being on for a long period of time is maybe not the greatest thing in the world, but it's not going to do a tremendous amount of damage. So I always like to see the repeaters remain on. And the reason I want them on is because if I'm going to take off in the car and go charging out looking, I know darn well what's going to happen. I am going to get into areas where I cannot hear the offending signal. And I've had that happen to me time and time again. So I just decided, okay, I'm not going to fool around with this. I'm going to make sure that the repeater is on so that I can hear that the interference is still there. Because there's nothing more frustrating to get out 5-10 miles from home, some little gully, and hunt around for an hour, and then find out that the signal had disappeared about an hour ago. So I want the repeater on. If people are profane, I really hate to see the repeaters on, but I hate to turn them off if I am out looking. So I think that that's probably the call of a control operator at the time. If you're out there looking, boy, I'll tell you, you want to know that that repeater is on. In fact, there were several instances of where I even asked people to go ahead and get on the repeater and sort of bait the person on and keep them talking. Because usually they come on time after time again and they establish a pattern. And that pattern could be that they remain on for about 15-20 minutes and then they get off. Which means if I take 5 minutes getting all my stuff in the car and I take off for 10 minutes, I'm not going to get anywhere near them. So there is a possibility that you might hear some well-known amateur like Dennis get on the repeater and start talking to one of these bozos. So if you hear something like that, I think you should be aware of the fact that they're probably aware of the fact that there is somebody out there looking. So sometimes they're baited. Usually, if somebody is swearing or doing something like that, the best thing to do is just get off the repeater. Just use one of the others. We have 3 others that you can use, so why not go ahead and just check out, go to one of the other repeaters. If they remain on for any length of time, then there's going to have to be some decision made as to whether there is going to be anybody sent out to go looking for the person. But I have discovered that in most cases, if there is deliberate interference to the repeater, that if you just disappear, they give up. I mean, they want attention. And if they don't get the attention, they go someplace else. Which is probably one of the reasons why the Polymer Amateur Radio Club repeaters have always been probably about the cleanest repeaters around. Those that were operated by Sandra at one time down in South County were really devastated with a large number of people who were causing interference. So I think that that's one thing that the club needs to re-examine probably, and that is whatever the policy might be on turning off the repeaters in the case of jamming, or if it is just accidental interference, I guess you know, just leave it on and then we get somebody out to go ahead and take a look at it. But if you hear the repeater being jammed, if you hear any type of activity going on that you know that it's accidental, make sure that you check the input of the repeater and see if you can hear them on the input. I remember one time that I threw my things in the car and headed off, and everybody was saying that the signal was coming down south. And so I took off on I-15 and started going south. And the further south I went, why the stronger the signal got for me. And then it apparently, according to the way I was DFing it, it seemed to be more towards the ocean side. Yet there was somebody in Poway who was saying, no, it's not out towards the ocean. It's over towards Palomar Mountain. And I said, well, how do you know? And they said, well, I've got a beam, and I've got it pointed right at the mountain, and I can hear him really quite well. So he did locate the repeater, but he had no idea at all where the interference was coming from. So I think that one of the things that we need to decide very early on is whether the interference is something that is accidental or whether it's on purpose. One of the ways that I always like to DF is a very simple way, and it's nothing more than just a handy-talkie. And it's surprising what good results you can get. I am not in the league with Joe or some of these other people that have beams, because they can do a lot more than I can. But if you people are out there, and you are listening to the interference, and you tell me approximately where this person is located or where the transmitter is located, and give me a shot at getting at the car and getting out in that general area, I've got a good chance of picking up where the person is. So I don't really concern myself with anything other than my good old handy-talkie. And what I do is I use the method that is somewhat popular, and that is, it's the handy-talkie in the belly method. And what you do is you take and turn your unit on, you come over and stick it in your belly like this, and if the signal is behind you, and you've got a lot of mass, that's MASS, if you've got a lot of mass in front of you here, then you're going to get practically no signal off of your back. So, what you would do, or what I would do when I start out, is I take the handy-talkie and I hold it out way in front of me, like this. That way, a signal from my back can sneak around and get to the antenna. So I should be able to pick it up. And what I will notice as I move my body around like this is that the signal will get less, increase, get less, and increase. Then as I get closer and closer to the signal, I then take and put the handy-talkie closer and closer to my stomach. That makes the reading sharper. And usually I can get up fairly close to the antenna that I'm seeking, that is doing the transmitting, by doing it this way. And so on the diagram that I have here, what I'm indicating is that the T is the transmitter, and then we have here the handy-talkie, which is out further. This is the way that you usually start out. You move it around like this. Remember, as soon as you get the null, then you know that directly back behind you is where the signal is coming from. There are people that are fairly good by holding it back behind, but my arms just don't seem to always go exactly where I think they should be back behind me. If you were to do it this way, then you could be looking in the proper direction. But I always use this method here. Holding it closer, that's what you do when you want to get, when you're very, very close to the signal. If you are very far from the signal and want to pick up more of the signal, you hold it out in front of you. The problem that I have is this, that when I'm out looking for the hidden transmitter, I don't have the luxury that Joe has. Joe can be driving along at 30, 40 miles an hour, or 50 or 60, and she can aim on the fly because she can spin that antenna around. In my case, I have to stop, and I have to pull off to the side of the road. After I pull off to the side of the road, I have to get out of the car, and then I have to be very, very careful before I start in. I don't want to do my DFing from the center of the road, which is what I would like to do, but I have to get far enough away from my car to do my spinning. Why? Okay, I'm going to get reflections off of the car and off of my car antenna. So, I need to make sure that I get out some distance. Then, as I do my spinning, if I get a null, then I get the feeling that the signal is back behind me. But I always make sure that if I get that null, I then start going around the rest of the way and see if I get another null. Because who knows? there might be a 500,000 gallon water tank, metal water tank off to the side of me, and I'm getting reflections off of it. So what I want to make sure of is that I get a good null. Then, if I get several nulls, what I would like to do then is walk 10, 15, 20 feet further away and go ahead and do another spin and see if I can get a reading there. If I'm able to walk 10 or 15 feet and get readings that are somewhat similar in terms of direction, then I feel that I've got enough to go on, I go back to the car and take off. Now, when I'm in the car, I try to always have several transmitters or receivers with me. And so I will, generally speaking, take a handy-talkie like this, and I will take the antenna off of it, and I will hang it from the rear view mirror. So that is always hanging when I go out the driveway. It is always hanging on my rear view mirror with no antenna. If I get close to the interfering signal, this handy-talkie will start squawking. Then, I always have one receiver tuned to the repeater output, because I want to make sure that I have somebody that is still on the repeater. I don't want them to drop off because I might as well turn around and go home. So I have one tuned to that, and then I usually have a third handy-talkie that is hanging from someplace or setting up on the dash, which is tuned to the input of the repeater. So I have three handy-talkies then. One with no antenna, one with a good antenna tuned to the input, and another one tuned to the output of the repeater. Usually, when you are doing transmitting hunting, you like to have as good a shielding as you possibly can. And some of us are not built in that way that we do an excellent job of shielding. And so we try to look for other ways of doing shielding. And one of the ways that I tried, but I don't use, is I made one of these. I saw it in one of the magazines, and all it is a can with some of the aluminum foil wrapped around it. And what you do is you lower the handy-talkie down into it, and you lower the antenna also, and then this presents less area, capture area, for the antenna. So you can do something very similar to that. There are other people that go to another extreme, and they come up with a special way of doing it. Art, would you show yours, please?
Okay, getting down to the last 50 or 100 foot is a problem. So this is a cast aluminum case. Inside here I have my HT, and you can take an HT with an antenna on it, and you can start off from the back of the room, and you can walk your way right up to where the HT is and still hear it. Most radios have a plastic case, so even if you take the antenna off, it's full scale in the room when you're near a transmitter. So this is the solution for the last 100 feet or so.
Okay, thank you, Art. So this is one way of doing it, is shielding, cutting down on the signal strength. Another way of doing it is a little bit like Joe was doing. She had a decade box. Well, I'm not sure if it was a decade box or not, but she had a resistance box. I have several of those. And what you can do is you can take and switch in a certain amount of resistance padding into your antenna so that you reduce the signal strength. But the idea is that what you want to do is you get closer and closer to the offending transmitter. You want to make sure that you have less and less signal to work with because you'll get a better null. So these decade boxes come in really very, very handy. That is this one here. You have your handy-talkie and then a decade box. The other way that I use quite a bit is I use the variable type antenna setup. And so I make up a large number of special little antennas. This is an antenna here which has shielding all the way up to here, and then just a little stub. So that is my way of cutting down on the antenna there. Or you can take a needle or take a paper clip or something like that and clip it and jam it down in or slip it down in, and you can use a very small antenna. So if you're trying to get something that is further away, you want more reception, so you can use a longer antenna, and you keep working on down. And here at the end of this, I had put down here showing where there is no antenna. If you look, you can see that one there. Then I keep a whole box of these of various sizes and for various purposes. So I always carry that with me. In fact, when I walk out of the house, what I have is a case. This is my direction finding case here. And in it, I try to put as many of the things as I can that I might possibly want to use. For example, one always wants to have extra cells, so I have a bunch of A cells. And I must confess that I sat there this afternoon, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out what the heck the clothespins are for. Does anybody know? I mean, they're here for some reason, and I just cannot remember.
It's to hang your laundry.
Well, anyway, I was really stumped by that one. Then, of course, you always want a paper and pen because you want to copy down addresses or street names. This one is a compass, but it's so doggone crude, I don't know what I would use it for, and I've got a protractor, a couple of rubber bands, and a couple of rulers. I'm not sure what they're used for. I also have a couple of spare antennas. Then I have some earphones. Now, I like usually when I'm out on a road or a noisy location, I like to take and use earphones as I'm spinning around and stick the earphone in my ear, and that way I can hear much more easily. But if you've got a bunch of traffic going by, it's really very difficult to hear the null. I also have in this a dB pad so that I can actually transmit through my dummy load that I have here, and that way I can also use it for DFing and transmitting. It'll hold up to about 2 watts. This one is a little bit more high-powered one. It will handle 4 watts, which takes care of most handy talkies. This is just some antenna extensions in case I want to extend some of the antennas. These are DC adapters so that if I'm out for any length of time, I can take and plug into a cigarette lighter and operate from that. And then one of the most important boxes that I have is this one, which has my raisins, Fig Newton bars, and a few other things in there, goodies, because they call me out around supper. I'm not going to miss it. I mean, I'm going to have it. Then it's always handy to go ahead and have one of these maps. I started in with a GPS relatively recently, and so I've never used GPS in transmitter hunting. But I could easily see where that would help out considerably because with my GPS, which I use all the time kayaking, the GPS, I can take and load the street maps in North County or all of San Diego County. I can put them all in here. I've got all the major roads in the United States in here the way it is. But if I want the individual streets around, say, Escondido, I can load those into the GPS here. So I don't know. I imagine maybe a GPS would be of some value because of the fact that you'd be able to say, I am here. And you could phone that in or you could transmit it in some way to someone and give them the information of where you are and what the bearing is. If that's the case and you had a couple of other people out there working, you might be able to get some triangulation working for you. So that is something that's a little bit new and I think probably could be worked in. I know at one time we were talking about putting a direction finding station up at the repeater site, which I imagine probably could be done without a great deal of effort. If I'm not mistaken, there is a packet unit up there now that will read voltages, and that's really all you need. If you could read the voltages of some type of antenna that was swinging back and forth, you only need to swing 90 degrees up the repeater side. Because if you swing 90 degrees, you cover all of San Diego County that has the amateurs in it. So if you had something that just swung back and forth like this, and you were able to get the voltage readings and transmit them down, you might be able to at least get a direction. And if you take and draw that line across San Diego County, it would give somebody that was hunting at least a line that they could go along as to where the transmitter might be located. I put down here a call sign, N9 SFX. He is one of my physics students that I had back in Indiana in 1963. And he is an amateur radio operator and has been doing an awful lot of transmitter hunting. I'll get into a little bit of what he's done, but he's really turned out to be an expert at it. And he makes these little boxes for attenuation. And if you want to go ahead and look him up, all you have to do is look up N9 SFX on the web. Do a Google search on him, and you'll probably get 3 or 4 pages of material. He has written and been published in CQ, QST, and a few of the other radio magazines. I made a list of some basic thoughts concerning the hunting of a hidden transmitter. And I thought I'd just quickly go through those. One of the things is I would tend to use as big an antenna or beam as you have on weak signals. Number 2, use small antennas for strong signals. In other words, when you get in very, very close to the offending transmitter. Go for maximum signal on weak signals. Go for a minimum signal for strong signals. Hold the HT further away from your body on weak signals and closer on strong signals. Closer gives you better absorption. Make sure that you rotate your body 360 degrees as you're looking for the transmitter, because remember, you might get a null in one direction, but you want to check and make sure that you get no other nulls. If you do, then you know that you're getting reflections, and then whatever it is you look at as a direction probably should be suspect. And of course, I think I mentioned number 7 before. You walk 10 to 20 feet away. Make sure that you stay away from any types of antennas or anything that you could get a reflection off of when you're doing your direction finding. And remember that you do look silly out there. You look darn silly. I have been in neighborhoods where I'm standing out in the middle of the street or a cul-de-sac, and I've got this little black box standing there, and I'm going around like this. And I see women pull their curtains back and look at me. And the one I was doing in Escondido, it was over by Harry's house. In fact, I checked his place first to make sure it wasn't coming from his place. But it was over there. I got out into a cul-de-sac, and I was spinning around, and I finally decided, I don't like the way she's looking at me. And besides that, I was getting a reading that I thought was maybe a little bit further away from there. And so I got in the car and drove out. I met a police car coming in. So I don't know if that was a coincidence, but I don't know what he was doing in a cul-de-sac. And so I always suspicion that she probably called the police. So you need to be careful. This friend of mine, back in Indiana, the former student, he told me yesterday, he said, you know, Stan, he said, one of the things that I always do is when I go out transmitter hunting and looking for these people, he said, I always carry a QST in my car. And he says, when the police stop me, all I do is pull out this QST, and I go to page 36, and I show them the article, and I show them my license, and they can see that it's Peter Statchuk that wrote the article. That's what's on the driver's license, and I'm a bona fide amateur, and I'm doing direction finding. So he's got it pretty well worked out because he's been stopped quite a few times. The things that he has done are just out of this world. I used to think that all the strange people and all the kooks and nuts were here in California. And I'm beginning to wonder about that, because we have never seen the problems that he has seen back in Indiana. There are a few things that once you get this idea down for getting a direction using a handy-talkie, there are a couple of little things that you probably could do. For instance, if you want to take and reduce the amount of signal that your handy-talkie is getting, you could take and turn 5 to 10 kcs off of the main frequency. Try it both ways. Try 5 kcs first. That way your receiver is not tuned to the frequency that you're DFing. It'll make the signal less. You can try 10 or 15 kcs, but that's one way of reducing it. Another way is to make use of the fact that when you are in very, very close to the transmitter that you're looking for, these are transistor-type rigs, and as I remember it, transistors generate harmonics quite a bit. And so what you have here is the third harmonic that you can be looking at. So if you're looking at the 146.73 repeater, the input frequency there is 146.13. So if you go ahead and multiply that by 3, which would be the third harmonic, you come up with 438.390. So if you take your 70 centimeter receiver and go ahead and tune it to it, that's a weak harmonic, and that gives you another weak signal as you're getting in close that you can go ahead and take a look at. So that is another little trick. I mentioned number 4 about hanging an HT on the mirror of my car. And 5, I think I mentioned also. Number 6, you don't really want to talk about DFing activities on the repeater. I wouldn't threaten anybody with DFing. I wouldn't even mention anything about DFing at all. If there is going to be any DFing, you need to contact one of the people that's going to be doing it for the club. I mentioned also in number 6, the control operator might come on, and I think of one specific case, which was out in Powell. And there I asked people to get on the air and go ahead and make transmissions to this guy and keep him on as long as they could. When it comes to individual cases, Joe mentioned the one in South County where she went charging down with her antenna that she had on her car. Another one was in Encinitas, and I traced that one down to, I guess we could DF the cell phone, and that is one of the things that people do DF from time to time, the cell phones. But anyway, when I DF'd that one, I got to it just after, I think that was when Craig got to. Craig is a nasty guy. He lives in, anyway, he lived in Escondido. And he was a pain as far as I was concerned. He would get there a block or two ahead of me on almost everything that happened. It really was disgusting because, you know, I'd get so close and Craig would say, "Oh, I've already got it." And then I come charging in to see that he got it, and yeah, he did. The one in Encinitas that I can think of right now, we had run around a little bit, and the signal was coming from the mobile rig, and what they'd done is they put a stack of records on top of the microphone. Then, one of the most challenging one was over in Vista, and that one was really very bad. I had all sorts of troubles with that one. People were telling me that it was over in the Vista area, and I tended to agree with them. And I'm not sure what the street was out there, but it was a street where it came down like this, and there was a hill up here, and there was a hill up over on the other side. And as I was coming in, I thought it was on this hill here. So as I came up, I got a reading, and I said, no, it's on the hill over here. So I drive around, and if you know Vista, it's a little bit difficult driving around these hills, even to getting to Art's place. And so I come up, get up over here, take another reading, daggone it, so we're back on the hill I just came from. So I must have made a mistake over there. So I get down, and I go back over, and no, it's back on the other hill. So I'm deciding now, I'm going to take an average. So I took the average of this hill and that hill, and went down and stayed right on the road. And then I just worked along the road about every 200 or 300 feet. I would get out of the car, would get out, take a reading, and son of a gun, back up one of these canyons, I was getting a reading. So I went back there, and it was obvious. There was a house there that belonged to an amateur radio operator. I mean, he had a nice beam antenna, had 2 mobiles in the cars outside. And I thought, hey, I got the place. So I go up to the front door, and I can see him sitting in there. There's a screen door, so I knock on the door. And as Joe says, you know, the first reaction is, it ain't me. But it almost always is. And so I said, you know, you got a transmitter on. The wife jumps up immediately and goes into the other room and says, no, it's not. I said, well, I think that's not the transmitter I'm talking about. I said, you've got 2 cars out here, and it's the black one. Well, how do you know? I said, well, just trust me. Go out and take a look at it. Of course, I didn't tell him. I had one of these little fluorescent bulbs. I held it up to the antenna, and it was glowing. I knew it was a high antenna. So he goes out there, and he says, well, I just used the car this morning. I said, when? He said, at 7:30. I said, that's strange. That's when our interference started. He said, well, it's not my car. I said, just open it up and take a look. Good chunk. The repeater drops. It was his car. So that was a little bit disgusting because of the fact that I did too much running around on it. Then there was another one that was very similar. Now these are all accidental cases. There was another one up in Fallbrook. And from my house, I can see Fallbrook very, very well. And so all I need to do is go out on my front porch, take my handy-talkie, do a spin, and I can get a bearing from the front porch. And it says Fallbrook. So this one was really pretty easy. I get out, I go charging into Fallbrook, I stop up there at the school, I take a reading. It says it is out to the west of Fallbrook. So I take the nearest road going out past the airport, and gee, after about 2 miles, the handy-talkie on my mirror that has no antenna starts to squawk. And I'm saying, he's here. So I start looking around, and I see a lane going back 200 or 300 yards, and I see an amateur radio antenna, so I say, I got him. I beat Craig on that one. I think it's the only one out of all the ones I've gone on that he and I were both going on. It's the only one that I ever beat him on. So I'm remembering this one clearly. But anyway, I go back there and knock on the door, and the guy comes out and he said, you know, I think you've got a transmitter on in your car. And he said, no. He said, I don't. And I said, well, it's the green car over here. He said, no, that's my wife's car. I said, I don't care if it's your wife's car. I said, is she an amateur radio operator? No. Would you please check your wife's car? He said, well, I know it's not on because she doesn't have a license and doesn't transmit. I said, I don't care, check it. So he opened up the car door and kerchunk, it turned off. I said, gee, I wonder how that happened. He said, well, I put it in the car for emergency uses so that whenever she wants to get a hold of me, she can. So anyway, that was an interesting one. There were several interesting ones in Escondido. And this is one of the reasons why when you are listening to an unintentional jamming signal, I sometimes get in there and crank that volume up as loud as I can get it. I hear people swearing. I hear people talking to their wives. I hear all sorts of things. And fortunately, usually my recognition of voices is fairly good. And on this one case, where I turned it up, I recognized the two people talking. Joe, would you know who they were? Yeah. Anyway, I get on the telephone, and I give them a call, and I say, hey, I think you got a transmitter on. And of course he answered, no, we don't. I said, okay, go take a look. I said, I can hear you and your wife talking. And besides that, the interesting thing was, when I called, I heard the telephone ring over the transmitter. So I knew I had the right house. So he went over and he turned it off. Well, we had several cases, 2 or 3 from his house, and he always blamed it on the cat. He said the cat, he had one of these desk stand mics, you know, where you have a little click to turn it on, and he kept telling me that the cat was climbing across and clicking it on. But anyway, that's the story he was telling me. So that was a little bit humorous. The other one that was rather interesting was one on packet. Somebody called me up and said, hey, there is a packet station on that has been transmitting a continuous tone. And it was just doing that. It had been doing it hour after hour after hour. So, Paul, what would have happened to it? Did it lost sync or something? Okay, well, anyway, some sort of crash. And all it was doing was just broadcasting a tone. And so again, I stood out on my front porch because I could hear the thing in the house. I started reducing the antenna, took it way down to almost nothing, and I was still getting a strong signal. So I decided, hey, this is going to be fairly easy because it was pointed right towards Fallbrook. So I go into Fallbrook again, take a reading. It's not in Fallbrook. It's obviously Temecula. So I go charging up to Temecula. Front side, take a reading. Nope. Take the north side of Temecula. Nope. Well, let's try Sun City. So I go up there and I take a reading. I ended up in the foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains. When I looked up, and I got a reading directly up to that peak with snow on it, and I said, the heck with it, and went home. The more serious kind that you can run into is where people are using foul language. And these are always very difficult to handle because the person stays on just a short period of time. And so it's very, very difficult to de-up them. If you can notice a pattern, that is a big help. For instance, this one that I'm thinking of was over in Encinitas. The pattern was that he always came on at a specific time during the day. So our assumption was he was getting off work, he was having a beer, and he was having his fun at our expense. Which meant that what we finally got together and decided was, we are going to take bearings immediately. We're all going to be looking at such and such a time. We did. We got a bearing, a couple of them, and it appears as though he was in the Encinitas area. So the next day, at about the same time, there were a bunch of people over there waiting. And we actually got the house that it was coming from, and we decided, because of the language that he was using that we probably did not want to go and knock on the door. So that was the decision. At the time, one of the Marines that was in the club was a very forceful guy, and he was a colonel, and he said, I'll take care of it. And I never really did quite understand just exactly what he did, but I heard rumors. The rumor was that he got up early in the morning, went over to this guy's house, and followed him to work. After he left work, he went in and talked to the guy's employer. and said, hey, look, this guy is operating against FCC rules, and there could be tremendous fines, and I hope that you don't get involved in this. Of course, he was stretching things a little. But the guy never transmitted again. That was the end of him. So I don't know exactly what happened, but that was close to it. That was the editor to the Scope at one time, so some of you probably know him. The one in Paula, the young kid would come on every day, and he also was coming on at a certain period of time, and it was quite evident that he might be a little bit high. And everything that we found out indicated that it was coming probably from the Paula area, because as I stood on my front porch, I got a reading directly out of Paula. So I said, Barbara, why don't you go ahead and drive the car. Barbara is KE6FDS. And I said, why don't you go ahead and drive the car and take me out there, and I'll do some DMing. So we went out and we started checking along the road to the now casino. And we kept going and going and going, and finally, as we got into the center of Paula, the Indian Reservation, you know where the fire station is? Okay, it was obvious, it was right out that road. So we drove out that road. I was feeling a little bit apprehensive about this because of the fact that if you've ever been on the reservation, you need to be just a little bit careful. And so I was not happy about this one at all. And so we worked our way out, and all the time there were 3 people on the repeater baiting this guy to keep him transmitting. And they kept him transmitting long enough that Barbara and I could go out this road about a mile. And there were 3 houses over here on the right side. And I got out in front of those houses, and I did a spin, and I picked up which house it was, and the guy stopped. Never heard him again. So evidently he figured that we knew where he was. But anyway, we were lucky. We scared him. The other one I call River City. My student, Peter Statchuk, has done all sorts of DFing, and some of them have been really terrible. The one that comes to mind is that there was a guy and a gal working for Radio Shack. And what they were doing is they were making printed circuit boards. And on these printed circuit boards, they set them up so that they would transmit on a frequency of the input to the Elkhart Amateur Radio Club repeater. They then installed these printed circuit boards in every TV that was sold. If you didn't think that didn't provide a lot of transmitter honey. So anytime anybody turned on their TV set, they started jamming the repeater. These people were very resourceful, but so was Pete. And he ran most of them down and said, well, let me look at your TV set, and he found these little boards. They turned them into the FBI for fingerprinting, but the FBI didn't seem to be too interested in it. Another thing, too, that he did was, from a practical standpoint, they have now set it up so that Alzheimer's patients can have these little transmitters, you know, that they put on, so if they get lost, they can DF them. And so they were running a test, and they were trying to show that amateur radio could help find these people. So what they did is they went out and they hit one of these Alzheimer's transmitters. The only thing is that as they went to put it on the branch of a tree, they dropped it and it fell into 5 feet of water. Yeah, and for some reason or another, they couldn't remember where that place was. So I don't know whether they had Alzheimer's or not. But anyway, they called on Pete. So Pete gets out there and he starts DFing it, and he finds the water spot. Now he's got another problem. He's got to find where that transmitter is down in the water. And you don't do that with a beam sweeping back and forth. So he constructed a little antenna and a weight, and he actually lowered that down into the water, and he put it down so that it just touched the bottom, picked it up about 6 inches, and moved it all the way around, and he got the Alzheimer's transmitter. Got it. Another one. They got a interference which appeared to be moving. And what it was is these people had gone ahead and put their transmitter inside of a balloon and put it in the Elkhart River. So now we got a fairly good transmitter broadcasting on the input of the repeater. They put it in way upstream, and the thing is floating downstream. He found it. But it took some work. Then, the next one that these people did, these people seemed to think it was a game. What they did is, at nighttime, they snuck out into one of these trash disposal areas, and they installed one on a bulldozer. So every morning when the bulldozer came in to work in the morning, he turned on the bulldozer and the interference started. Of course, it was a moving interference. So they had a lot of troubles with that one. One of the others that he has been working on just recently was a cell phone. Some guy has hooked his cell phone up and is running somewhere around about 50 watts. They've located it I think it was just last week, and they've reported it to the FCC. The other one, which I thought was really very smart of them, he usually finds everything they hide, and so I think they figured they were going to fix him. So what they did is they went and sent themselves, well, they didn't send it to themselves, they sent it to a fictitious character, a package, FedEx. The FedEx package had a hidden transmitter in it. They knew what they were doing. They mailed that from Elkhart, Indiana, knowing that it was going to go to Chicago and then back again. They mailed it so that it came in just as the gates closed at the FedEx place, and it was locked up for the weekend in their storage. So he had to go out, convince the police, convince the FedEx people, and everybody involved that he needed to get in and take a look at what was there. And after about a half a day of wrangling with them, they let him in. He got in, picked up the package, and there it was, the hidden transmitter. So he's had his troubles there. But anyway, transmitting hunting can be fun sometimes. It can be entertaining, and it can be rewarding. So I certainly would hope that some of you might be inclined, maybe not to be expert transmitter hunters, but if you got a handy-talkie, try it. See if you can DF the repeater. If you find it out in the Pacific Ocean, you know you're wrong. It's up on Polymer Mountain. There are lots of things you can check. If a police radio is stolen, a lot of these new transceivers, you can receive the police frequency. You can actually DF the police, or you could DF a fire rig that has been stolen. It was my understanding that the FBI does have a directional finding facility up on Polymer Mountain. Does anybody know anything about that? Well, I think there is one up there. At least there was. So I think that any help that they could get at various times would be certainly welcome. So I appreciate your attention, and the only other thing I want to say is that make sure that you have water with you, because if you're out for any length of time, you're going to need to want to drink. So thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I want to thank you all for coming this evening. Hold on, Mark. I want to remind everyone that we do have a picnic coming up on Sunday the 28th, noonish. My understanding is there's supposed to be a hidden transmitter somewhere on the site. So if you want to give some of these a shot, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, Mark, you have a...
Not anymore.
Stole
Cheryl
Mark's
and I
thunder.
were talking about hiding the transmitter on the site, so everybody, but you know, let's make it simple, let's restrict it to just HTs and verticals. No beams, no nothing fancy. Everybody's got the same ground, same level playing field.
Everyone has the same handicap.
A scan rate.
Okay? Don?
Yeah, I was going to mention that when in using the body method, that Stan didn't happen to mention that one of the things that I use all the time is I tight squelch it. In other words, just before the squelch point, as I turn around, the signal drops out at the minimum point. It makes it much easier to get directions than having to look for an estimator, which, as you're looking down and something to estimator, you can't really see it sometimes because they're on the front of the radio. The other thing is that on that hidden transmitter or that lost sailor that he was mentioning at the very beginning of his talk that we DF for the Coast Guard, he failed to mention, or maybe he didn't realize it, that we DF the Coast Guard boat as it was on its way to give them an idea of the accuracy that we were having. I was involved in that.
Not a bad idea. Okay, Joe.